What if I told you that the moment of your death could be your most powerful spiritual opportunity? What if, instead of being something that happens to you, your transition from this world could be a conscious choice, a sacred ceremony that you orchestrate with complete awareness and profound peace? For thousands of years, ancient wisdom traditions have taught that death is not a failure of life, but its ultimate graduation. They developed sophisticated practices, not just to ease the fear of dying, but to transform death itself into a gateway to liberation. These weren't abstract philosophies. They were practical, time-tested methods for preparing your consciousness to navigate the most significant transition you'll ever make. Today, we're diving deep into the most powerful spiritual practices from Tibet, India, Egypt, and beyond to discover how to prepare your soul for its ultimate journey. Get ready to transform your relationship with mortality forever. The ultimate spiritual opportunity. Here's what most people don't understand about death. It's not something that happens to you. It's something you participate in. Every ancient tradition teaches that the state of your consciousness at the moment of death determines what follows. Your transition is not left to chance, fate, or circumstance. It culminates everything you've practiced, understood, and prepared for. The Tibetan masters have a saying, "The way you live your life is the way you will die, and the way you die determines your next experience of existence." This isn't meant to create pressure or fear. It's intended to empower you with the understanding that you have agency over the most critical moments of your existence. But here's what's truly remarkable. When you begin preparing for death, you don't just transform your relationship with dying. You transform your relationship with living. Every practice that prepares you for conscious dying simultaneously awakens you to mindful living. Every fear you release, every attachment you loosen, every moment of awareness you cultivate becomes a gift to your future transition and present experience. The architecture of consciousness. Before we explore the specific practices, we need to understand what ancient wisdom teaches about the nature of consciousness and death. According to these traditions, you are not your physical body. You are consciousness temporarily inhabiting a physical form. Your thoughts, memories, personality, and awareness exist in what mystics call subtle bodies or energy fields that can separate from your physical form. When you die, these subtle aspects of yourself don't disappear. They continue in a state of heightened awareness and expanded possibility. But here's the crucial point. The quality of this continuation depends entirely on how prepared your consciousness is for the transition. The ancient Egyptian texts describe the soul's journey through various realms and challenges. The Tibetan teachings map out specific phases of consciousness after death. The Hindu traditions explain how your final thoughts and karma shape your next experience. These systems agree on one fundamental truth. Preparation is not just possible, it's essential. Think of death preparation as learning to navigate in deep water. If you've never learned to swim and you're suddenly thrown into the ocean, you'll likely panic and struggle. But if you've spent years developing your swimming skills, breath control, and water confidence, you can move through even turbulent waters with grace and purpose. Your consciousness works the same way. Without preparation, the dramatic shifts and expansive experiences of the death process can be overwhelming, confusing, or frightening. These experiences become opportunities for liberation, healing, and transcendence with proper preparation. The 5 pillars of soul preparation. Ancient wisdom traditions despite their different languages and cultures, consistently emphasize 5 essential preparation areas for conscious dying. These aren't merely intellectual concepts. They're practical disciplines that require dedicated cultivation throughout your life. The first pillar, cultivating death awareness. The foundation of all death preparation is developing a healthy, ongoing relationship with your mortality. This doesn't mean becoming morbid or obsessed with death. It means integrating the reality of your finite physical existence into your daily awareness to bring clarity, purpose, and appreciation to every moment. The Buddhist practice of Maranasati, or death contemplation, involves regularly reflecting on death's certainty, unpredictability, and universality. But it goes deeper than intellectual acknowledgement. It's about feeling in your bones the precious fragility of this moment, this breath, this heartbeat. Here's a powerful practice from the Tibetan tradition. Each morning, upon waking, before you check your phone or start planning your day, spend 5 minutes contemplating that this could be your last day of physical existence. Notice what becomes essential and what fades in significance when viewed through this lens. Notice how this awareness changes your priorities, patience with loved ones, and gratitude for simple experiences. This isn't about creating anxiety. It's about dissolving the illusion of permanence that keeps us trapped in trivial concerns and prevents us from living with the depth and intensity our souls crave. The second pillar, releasing attachments. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of death preparation is learning to loosen your grip on everything that will remain behind when you die. This includes material possessions, relationships, identities, achievements, and even your physical body. The Sanskrit word for attachment, upadana, literally means clinging or grasping. Ancient texts describe attachment as the force that keeps consciousness bound to suffering and prevents it from flowing freely through transitions. When you approach death while clinging desperately to what you're losing, you create tremendous resistance that turns a natural process into a traumatic struggle. But releasing attachments doesn't mean becoming indifferent or disconnected. Instead, it means learning to love without possessing, enjoy without clinging, and engage fully while holding lightly. The Bhagavad Gita teaches this as action without attachment to results. You pour yourself completely into life while remaining unattached to specific outcomes. One practice involves regularly giving away things you're attached to, not just material objects, but also opinions, expectations, and the need to control how others perceive you. Start small. Give away a possession you enjoy to someone who would appreciate it. Notice the feelings that arise. Practice releasing them with gratitude rather than resistance. Another powerful technique is the deathbed exercise. Imagine you have 1 week left to live. What attachments would you naturally release? What would matter and what wouldn't? What forgiveness would you offer? What love would you express? Don't wait until you die to make these releases. Begin now, while you have the clarity and strength to choose consciously. The third pillar, purifying your energy. Ancient traditions teach that the accumulated patterns of your thoughts, emotions, and actions throughout life determine the quality of your consciousness at death. Negative patterns of resentment, fear, guilt, and anger create heavy, dense energy that can trap consciousness in confused or painful states after death. Positive patterns of love, compassion, forgiveness, and gratitude make light, clear energy that allows consciousness to move freely toward peace and liberation. This is why purification practices are central to death preparation across all traditions. The word purification doesn't imply that you're dirty or sinful. It means removing obstacles that prevent your consciousness from expressing its natural clarity and luminosity. Forgiveness is the most powerful purification practice. Holding resentment is like carrying heavy stones in your backpack. It weighs down your consciousness and requires constant energy. The Egyptian teachings emphasize that hearts heavy with unforgiveness cannot pass through the afterlife successfully. The Christian tradition links forgiveness to spiritual freedom. Buddhists understand that anger and resentment are suffering that continue beyond death if not resolved. Begin by making a complete forgiveness inventory. Everyone who has harmed you, everyone you have hurt, and how you have harmed yourself. This isn't about condoning wrong actions or maintaining relationships with harmful people. It's about releasing the energetic charge that binds you to past pain. For each person or situation, practice this process. First, fully acknowledge the harm that was done without minimizing or excusing it. Second, recognize how carrying this resentment has affected your life and consciousness. Third, choose to release the energetic charge for your freedom, not because the other person deserves it. Finally, send genuine wishes for the other person's healing and happiness, understanding that their harmful actions came from their pain and confusion. The fourth pillar, developing concentration and clarity. The death process involves rapid, dramatic changes in consciousness that can be disorienting if your mind isn't trained in stability and clarity. Ancient traditions developed meditation practices to prepare consciousness for the heightened awareness and visionary experiences of dying. The Tibetan practice of Phowa, or consciousness transference, trains you to move your awareness through your body and out through the crown of your head. This isn't just preparation for death. It's training in controlling and directing your consciousness with precision. Practitioners report that regular Phowa practice brings a sense of confidence and fearlessness about death, because they've already experienced their consciousness as separate from and transcendent to their physical form. Begin with basic breath awareness meditation, spending at least 20 minutes daily simply observing your breath without trying to control it. This develops the fundamental skill of maintaining calm attention amid change, precisely what you'll need during the death process. Advanced practitioners work with visualization exercises where they imagine their consciousness as light moving through their body and eventually beyond their physical form. This familiarizes the mind with the experience of expanded awareness that occurs naturally during dying. The fifth pillar, cultivating devotion and surrender. Perhaps the most profound preparation for death is developing the capacity for complete surrender to forces greater than your individual will. Every wisdom tradition teaches that the ultimate obstacle to peaceful dying is the ego's desperate attempt to maintain control when control is no longer possible. Devotion doesn't necessarily require belief in a specific deity. It means opening your heart to the sacred mystery of existence itself. It means developing trust in the intelligence that created the universe and orchestrating the countless transitions that occur every moment in nature. Some practitioners cultivate devotion through prayer, mantra repetition, or contemplation of divine qualities like unconditional love, infinite compassion, or perfect wisdom. Others develop devotion through a deep appreciation for the miracle of existence, the incomprehensible complexity and beauty of life, consciousness, and the cosmos. The practice of surrender involves regularly letting go of your will in favor of larger forces. This might mean accepting difficult circumstances gracefully, allowing natural processes to unfold without interference, or trusting your intuition over your analytical mind. Sacred death practices from ancient traditions. Now, let's explore specific techniques developed by various wisdom traditions for conscious dying and soul preparation. The Egyptian preparation, mastering the sacred journey. The ancient Egyptians spent lifetimes preparing for death through study, ritual, and moral purification. Their approach was systematic and comprehensive, treating death preparation as the most critical education anyone could receive. They memorized texts that described the challenges and opportunities of the afterlife journey. They practiced visualization exercises where they imagined successfully navigating the various trials they would face. They lived according to the 42 principles of Ma'at, cosmic order and moral truth, understanding that their ethical choices determined their afterlife experiences. Modern practitioners can adopt these approaches by studying descriptions of the death process from various traditions, practicing visualization of peaceful and empowered dying, and committing to ethical living that creates positive karma for the afterlife. The Tibetan method, training in the Bardos. Tibetan Buddhism developed perhaps the most sophisticated and practical approach to death preparation. The Bardo Thodol, or liberation through hearing in the intermediate state, provides detailed instructions for maintaining consciousness and making beneficial choices throughout the death process. The practice begins with dream yoga, learning to become lucid in dreams and maintain awareness during sleep. Since dream states and death states have similar characteristics, proficiency in dream awareness translates directly to skill in navigating the death process. Advanced practitioners train to recognize the clear light of consciousness, the fundamental awareness underlying all mental activity. They practice identifying with this pure awareness rather than with thoughts, emotions, or physical sensations. The goal is to recognize this same clear light when it appears naturally at death, achieving liberation through recognition of their true nature. The Hindu path, conscious departure. Hindu tradition emphasizes the crucial importance of your final thought at death. The Bhagavad Gita states that whatever you remember at the time of death is what you will become. This places enormous emphasis on maintaining spiritual awareness during the dying process. Practitioners prepare by developing unwavering concentration on sacred mantras, divine forms, or spiritual principles. They practice maintaining this concentration even during physical discomfort, emotional distress, or mental confusion, understanding that these same challenges will arise while dying. The ultimate preparation is developing such complete identification with your eternal soul, Atman, that the death of the body becomes irrelevant to your essential identity. You know yourself as pure consciousness, temporarily using a physical form rather than as a physical form that somehow developed consciousness. Practical daily preparation techniques. These ancient teachings only become transformative when translated into daily practice. You can implement specific techniques immediately to prepare your soul for transition. Morning death contemplation. Begin each day with 5 to 10 minutes of mortality reflection. Sit quietly and contemplate that this day might be your last opportunity to express love, offer service, or experience the miracle of consciousness. Notice how this awareness affects your priorities and emotional state. Please don't make this practice dramatic or morbid. Approach it with gentle curiosity and appreciation. The goal is to dissolve the unconscious assumption of permanence that keeps you postponing what truly matters. Daily attachment release. Each day, consciously release attachment to one specific outcome you're hoping for or dreading. This might be as simple as releasing attachment to others' approval of your appearance, or as significant as releasing attachment to a particular relationship outcome. Practice the phrase, "I will do my best," and release attachment to the results. Notice how this creates space for peace, regardless of what happens. Forgiveness meditation. Spend 10 minutes daily sending genuine forgiveness and blessing to someone who has harmed you, someone you have hurt, or an aspect of yourself you judge harshly. Use phrases like, "May you be free from suffering. May you find peace. May you be happy." This isn't about condoning harmful behavior. It's about freeing your consciousness from the weight of resentment that would otherwise accompany you through death. Consciousness flexibility training. Practice moving your attention deliberately through different areas of your body, expanding it to include your surrounding environment, and then contracting it to a single point. This develops the mental flexibility needed to navigate consciousness changes during dying. Advanced practitioners work by imagining their awareness moving out of their body entirely and returning. This familiarizes consciousness with the experience of existing independent of physical form. Sacred dying visualization. Once weekly, spend 20 to 30 minutes visualizing your death as a sacred ceremony. Imagine yourself dying consciously, peacefully, and with complete acceptance. See yourself surrounded by love, releasing all attachments with gratitude, and transitioning into expanded awareness with joy and curiosity. This isn't meant to be frightening. Approach it as a rehearsal for the most critical performance of your life. The more familiar your consciousness becomes with the dying process, the more natural and peaceful your actual transition will be. The transformation that occurs. When you begin seriously preparing for death, something remarkable happens. You start truly living. The practices that prepare you for conscious dying simultaneously awaken you to mindful living. Every attachment you release creates more freedom in your daily experience. Every moment of death awareness brings a deeper appreciation for life. Every purification practice increases your capacity for joy and peace. Students often report that death preparation practices initially feel challenging or uncomfortable, but gradually become sources of profound liberation and spiritual empowerment. They discover that what they thought was preparation for something far ahead is preparation for being fully present. The fear of death, which underlies so many other fears, begins to dissolve as you develop confidence in your ability to navigate the transition consciously. This isn't because you become reckless or suicidal. Quite the opposite. It's because you realize that your essential nature transcends physical form, and death becomes a transition rather than an ending. Signs of preparation. How do you know if your death preparation practices are effective? Ancient texts indicate that consciousness is ready for a smooth transition. You begin to hold your relationships more lightly while loving more deeply. You find yourself less reactive to circumstances beyond your control. Dreams become more lucid and visionary. Meditation deepens naturally. Fear of death decreases, while appreciation for life increases. Most significantly, you begin to identify less with your temporary personality and more with the eternal awareness that observes all experiences. You start to know yourself as consciousness rather than as the temporary collection of thoughts, memories, and preferences that make up your identity. The ultimate practice: living as if already dead. The most advanced death preparation practice is living from the understanding that you have already died to everything temporary and are now operating as pure consciousness, expressing through a temporary form. This doesn't mean becoming detached or indifferent, engaging fully while remaining unidentified with outcomes. From this perspective, every day becomes a gift rather than an entitlement. Every relationship becomes an opportunity to express love rather than to get needs met. Every challenge becomes a chance to practice the equanimity you'll need while dying. This is why the ancient masters taught that preparing for death is identical to learning how to live. The consciousness that can remain peaceful, loving, and aware during the dying process is the same consciousness that can remain peaceful, loving, and aware during all of life's transitions. Your sacred preparation begins now. The time to begin preparing for your ultimate transition is not when you receive a terminal diagnosis or feel death approaching. It's right now. At the same time, you have the clarity, energy, and opportunity to develop the skills your consciousness will need. Every moment you spend in spiritual practice, every attachment you release, every act of forgiveness you offer, every instance of death contemplation you engage in becomes part of your preparation for the most important journey you'll ever take. Remember, you're not preparing for death as an ending. You're preparing for death as a transformation, a liberation, a conscious participation in the greatest mystery of existence. You're preparing to die not as a victim of circumstance, but as a soul ready to embrace its next adventure with wisdom, courage, and profound peace. The ancient masters understood what modern culture has forgotten. Death is not the opposite of life. It's the culmination of life. It's the moment when all your spiritual preparation, growth in wisdom and compassion, and practice of letting go and staying aware come together in one ultimate expression of consciousness. Your preparation for conscious dying starts with this very breath. What attachment are you ready to release today? What forgiveness are you prepared to offer? What moment of death contemplation will you include in tomorrow morning's routine? The ancient wisdom is clear. How you prepare determines how you transition, and how you transition determines what comes next. This isn't just about preparing for some distant future event. It's about awakening to the eternal dimension of your being that exists right now, in this moment, transcendent to birth and death, yet fully present in both. What would change in your life if you truly understood that you are an eternal soul having a temporary human experience, rather than a temporary human hoping for soul survival? What would you do differently if you knew that your consciousness is preparing for its ultimate expression right now? Share your insights in the comments below. Have you begun any death preparation practices? What fears or resistances arise when you contemplate your mortality? What changes in your daily life as you develop a healthier relationship with death? If this exploration into conscious dying preparation resonated with you, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into spiritual wisdom and consciousness expansion. Next week, we'll explore what the ancient texts reveal about the experience of consciousness during the dying process and the visions, transitions, and opportunities that await every soul making the ultimate journey. Remember, preparing for death isn't about becoming morbid or fearful. It's about becoming more alive, more aware, and freer than you ever imagined possible. Your soul's most excellent adventure begins with your willingness to prepare for it consciously. Until next time, may you live each day as both practice for dying and celebration of living, knowing that mastery of one brings mastery of the other.